Are you ready?
Starting now?
Well, now you just messed it up, you knob. God, you know that the shit that we go through for this, huh?
I know. Fuckers better appreciate it. What's the title of this podcast again?
I don't know. Objects, I don't know. Something with a penis, I guess.
Right.
Right. Popular with the ladies. Right. Oh, I'm not even going to apologize because hopefully it sounds fucking hilarious.
Yeah, totally. This is fucking explicit now.
The explicit button. Let me use my finger.
La, 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 la.
It is time for another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And that episode starts now. All right, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Sober, Not Mature. It is a Friday night, and Mike and I were just talking before we connected here. It's a beautiful Friday night here, weather-wise. And Mike, you said it's pretty nice there too, huh?
It is. Happy Friday the 13th, everybody.
You know, it's kind of funny that that completely blew out of my head today. I mean, here and there I was seeing memes, obviously on social media. Mm-hmm. But it just wasn't really clicking in my head that it was Friday the 13th. But yeah, there's a lot of fun with that. And actually, I had a hell of a nice day. But I know some people get all freaked out by it. But yeah, it's one of your favorites, right?
Sure, why not? You know, it's all superstitious mumbo jumbo.
Exactly. Well, cool. Well, yeah, it's once again, Friday night, a little bit of a nice weather. God, I mean, just that in itself is, I don't know, helps my mood a little bit. But we've got some interesting statistics, actually. Speaking of good moods, a couple of things to start us off, but actually put us in good moods. So, and I didn't have a chance yet to post this on Instagram because it hit this number earlier today and then fell and then popped up another 3. So we are at 702 followers on Instagram. Yeah, which I was listening to a couple of the old episodes, and I think that it's only been, I don't think it's been like a month ago. We didn't even have half of that. So it's, right. It's kind of cool. But I've noticed on Instagram, basically what happens is we usually hit certain numbers and then we'll drop 1 or 2. And I don't know if it's just people that are like, once again, why are we following these 2 boneheads or whatever it is? But I have
no answer for that.
You know what? I don't either. I have no answer for any of this yet. So that's the fun part. But yeah, I usually wait a little bit till it usually gets into the 705 or the 5 or 6 over whatever the milestone number is. But yeah, 702. Now the number of plays, and I don't know if you saw it on Facebook, but I posted it on Instagram earlier today. We were like at 491 or 493, I think, earlier today. Mm-hmm. And basically I posted and kind of begged people to get us to 500. It did not happen.
Cool.
We're at 498. So
right.
A couple of, but still, I mean, same thing. Listening to a few episodes ago, I mean, when we were, at 75 plays or 100 plays or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's again huge. 498. Now the the top episodes. Episode 4 is still number 1, and that is at 52 plays. Episode 10, so 2 episodes ago, I think that was our Founders Day one, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it in
our trip to Akron.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I say Founders Day, yeah, Dr. Bob trip to Akron. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
And then episode 3, which is again your story, is at 50. And then the last episode, the episode 11, is at 37 already. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just cool. I mean, again, watching these numbers, I enjoy it. And then our demographic, again, women popped up 1. We're at 65% for women, 28% for men, and then again, 10% either not identified or open or whatever the deal is on there. Main demographic. What's that?
Or they're not sure.
Exactly. Not sure they want to admit what, that they're even listening, let alone, gender. So I get that. So 45 to 59 is still our main demographic at 49%. 35 to 44-year-olds at 30%. And then 28 to 34% is at 16, or I'm sorry, 28 to 34 years old is at 16%. And then the remainder at 1% between the remaining. But other thing I wrote down was once again, other areas of the world, where we're getting some listeners. Again, right. United Kingdom, South Africa, Australia, Argentina, Ireland, Germany, Mexico, and Canada. So just kind of, again, just kind of cool. But one other thing too, with all of this is that, again, I was just listening back at some of the episodes, and two reasons is that every once in a while when I've listened back at one of the episodes, I remember something. That's how I remembered that we were going to talk about the absolutes. But I also, again, start to listen to and hear some of these things back. And again, when we were talking about what our expectations were, and I think a couple episodes you still said you didn't give a shit.
And you know what? I still don't.
Well, you know what? Stay consistent, because that's what works, and what has worked for you for this long. But this is episode 12, and how many steps are there?
13, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, there is, but yeah. So it's obviously 12th episode, 12 steps. Remember, Doc, did we even talk about the number of steps up to Dr. Bob's house from the street?
I don't think we did.
Yeah, so that happens to be, it's 12 steps from the sidewalk up to the porch, or is it up onto the porch? Just up to the porch or onto
the porch?
Okay. And then do you remember going down into the dorms in the Keating Center?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that was also 12 steps? Do you remember that?
I do recall that. I mean, I was upstairs in a dorm, so it wasn't part of my deal, but I know you had to trudge those steps every day.
and I did, yeah. But it was just kind of cool because to step back a little bit, the Keating Center was just, and we don't even know what it was prior to that, but it did have like an industrial kitchen, and had a dining room area, had dorm areas. I don't know if it almost looked, part of it looked like almost like a factory, but not with like machinery and stuff like that. I don't know what it was. But I mean, when they took over that building in whatever year, I mean, clearly it wasn't built, to be a sober living facility.
Right.
But yeah, just kind of cool that it had, 12 steps again, going down to the dorms, which was fun. And then the only thing I thought about was we should have recorded this yesterday, because it would have been the 12th, and 12 years for us, So I mean, it's just a bunch of fucking 12s. All these fucking 12s all over the place. So we blew it by not recording yesterday. But hey, it wouldn't be the first time that we failed by a day. Well, you'd fail by 4 days. So
exactly.
but yeah. So what's that? You cut out a little bit.
A day late and $1 short.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly. Story of my life too, in most cases. But yeah, we were talking about the weather and stuff like that. And so we got, I actually let everyone go today about 15 minutes early, which was, every once in a while we try to do that. But I mean, it seriously, it was so nice. And I've got like a 30-minute commute on the way home. But, I was thinking about that. Again, back when I was drinking and stuff like that, getting out work even 15 minutes early, 5 minutes early when the weather was nice, it's like, okay, more time to get out and, go figure out what I'm going to do from a drinking standpoint. But what I was looking forward to was getting into my car, opening up my sunroof, putting the windows down, and I cranked the Foo Fighters all the way home. And it was wonderful. And I got home and I was in a great mood. I grabbed my pizza. They didn't fuck that up this week. So cool. That was good. And here's the funny part too, is I thought about it. I'm like, man, I'm in a really good mood today. And I'm like, yeah, probably the weather. But then so I'm sitting there trying to figure it out. And I don't know if you remember, I did that once, probably more than once, but I just remember one specific time when you and I were living in the house together. And just one of those things, I'm like, you know what? I'm in like a really good mood and I don't know why. And you're like, why are you even questioning it?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know, because it's just even like, but it happens on the other end too. I end up in, some sort of a shitty mood and I can't figure it out. And usually I try to figure that out so I can, if it's something, festering that I got to work through. But, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, work sucked this week. I was all stressed out about, just silly things. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff going on at work that just caused a lot of stress. And
Right.
the world for me to be in a great mood, but I am, and I'm like, I'm not going to question it. But it was just, well, I already did, but
Right, of course, right. But we have to work that muscle, man, that gratitude muscle. Things are going well. Let's enjoy it, and it's not natural and normal for us. I don't know. I have to work at it.
Yeah, no doubt. And it is weird, isn't it? Because I mean, normal people don't have to, and I say that quite a bit. I have to remember to be grateful, and it's stupid when you say it out loud. It sounds ridiculous
Right.
because I mean, again, normal people shouldn't have to be like, oh, I have to remember to be a decent human being.
Right.
I need a book. I need meetings. I need reminders. I got to pray every day. I mean, it's literally that. We're like waking up as infants every morning and like retraining ourselves. So it's just kind of funny. But that kind of leads into the first thing that crossed my mind this week, and it really crossed my mind because of again all the shit that was going on at work. But I thought about when both of us first started working, and I know what your first job was, what mine was, and obviously your second job and what my second job is and where all that led to. But I was thinking about, just that part of it. And, I'd like to, if we could, just talk about what we did for our first jobs and how we felt, if it was stressful, why we did it. And I know this leads me into what your second job was, because you had a lot of freedom and stuff like that. So, but I don't know, start off. So your first job, I don't even remember how you got the first job. I know what you did. But how did you feel about it? Was it stressful? I mean, was it perfect for you at the time? I don't know.
No, it was quite awful. Well, we'll start from the beginning.
I'm sorry. I almost choked on air there when you said that.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay.
No, so it was a mutual friend of ours worked in this little crappy metal shop. And another guy, we were both at the Keating Center. We had gone 3/4, and I was starting to look for work, but I hadn't really gotten real serious about it. And this other guy that was there was supposed to get this job, and I think he had got, I know it was a Sunday for me. I think he had been told that he got this job on a Friday. He went out on Saturday to celebrate. So it was Sunday morning, and there was a Sunday morning, still is a Sunday morning meeting at the Keating Center. And because I was 3/4, I didn't have to get up and go to that meeting. I've told people ever since then, as soon as I didn't have to go to that meeting, I didn't, because I didn't want to get up Sunday morning. So anyway, I'm laying in my bunk down in C dorm at the Rock, and Marty came down and said, go upstairs and talk to Henrock. And I went upstairs and talked to this dude, and he said, yeah, man, start tomorrow. And it was this metal finishing shop. We got parts from other companies. We brought them in, and basically we threw them into big machines or whatever, and smoothed them out, took the burrs and stuff off of them. It was awful. It was physical. It was dirty. It was hot in summer. It was cold in the winter. I hadn't done anything physical in probably 2 years. Not like that. It killed me first couple of weeks. But you know what? I was, speaking of gratitude, as awful as it was, I was grateful to have it. I made enough money to get by. And I was there with another sober guy working, and it was, hell, I stayed there for close to 1.5 years. And it was awful. It was not a good job. But, but it provided, I paid my rent at the Keating Center, and it was fine, and I stayed for a while. And the cool thing was, this was probably, I know it was the first job that when I left, they were sad to see me go. They were like, well, if you ever want to come back, you've always got a place here with us. And I was just like, wow, that's different. Yeah. So go ahead and talk about your first job.
So I was looking for, and I was in hey, it's not really a secret. I've been in the debt collection industry for years and years and years, and I didn't want to get back into that. And at the time, and this is what I was thinking about today, it was that I didn't want to deal with the stress of the industry, regardless of what position I took. There are some stresses to it. It just is what it is. So I've also been in sales positions, so that's what I was searching for. And when the deal is we were halfway, and I say this quote unquote halfway when you went to groups and all that stuff. And then they would graduate you. And when you went 3/4, then you went looking for work. And then you went 3/4 where you were working, still living at the Keating Center, paying rent, as Mike just said. But that interim part, which basically is purgatory, when you're looking for work, because you're right on that cusp of having some freedom.
Right.
And I couldn't find a job. And I'm applying to, and that's where the story from last week with, searching jobs with my cousin and all that stuff. So I'm looking for all these sales jobs, and I can't find one. So a couple of guys, and I know Pete was one of them, and there was 2 or 3 other guys that got a job at that factory that I worked at. And basically they're like, all you got to do is get out to this place. You will get hired. They know who we are. They know what our deal is.
Right.
You're going to go in, you're going to interview, you're going to take a drug test right while you're there. And when you pass it, you're going to get hired. He's going to tell you you're going to start that day or the next day. And I'm like, really? So I'm like, whatever, man. So right. I remember going out to do this interview, and I didn't have a car. So it was out I think it was in Parma where I had to go, which to drive there from the Keating Center would have taken me probably 20 minutes. It was like an hour and a half and 3 buses. I got off at the wrong stop, walking like a half a mile. But I got there, and exactly what they said happened, and I started this factory. Now, it was and I don't remember what type of factory, but my job was to stand in one position. It was second shift, 3 to 11. And I don't remember what I made, but it was basically minimum wage, maybe a little bit more. And hanging parts, they come out of a machine, you have bin, you hang parts, then out of a machine, hang parts. But they're on these little metal clips that come out, and when you're hanging them up, depending on the part, literally there's no way around it. You're cutting the fuck out of your hands, number one. And I'm standing all day. And this is, even though it's at this point I'm 60 days to almost 90 days sober, whatever it was, my body hadn't really healed from whatever trauma I went through, so I wasn't doing the heavy lifting, physical, that sort of thing, but it did it's weird. It sounds weird, but it wore me out. And I hated it. And I made just enough money to pay my rent. That was it. And my mom was the one that was helping me out. She was giving me, again, a 41-year-old man. This goes back to me providing. But at this point, I was trying. I wasn't just taking, but she was giving me an allowance, buying chips and soda and that sort of thing for me. We still got our meals, and I had just enough, to do what I needed to do. But literally, I was just making enough to pay rent. And it wasn't the awfulness that you had by any stretch. I wouldn't have been able to do what you did. There's just no way. I wouldn't have been able to physically do it. It would have. I just couldn't. I couldn't. So that was my first job, and that led into something else. But your second job, I think, was because I remember how you ended up getting it, how you heard about it, and then that went into this whole. Well, basically, I'll let you tell it. But I think one of the most important parts is how you got it, who you got it from, and that you know how you felt. So go ahead.
Yeah, right. So I am a professional truck driver. I had done that for a while. I was still drinking at the time, but And then, but I stopped doing it because it was, getting in the way of my drinking. But, but I still have my CDL, my commercial driver's license. I always hung on to that. And, I still had it. And I knew early on, it's probably why I stayed at the metal shop as long as I did, because I knew I wasn't ready to go back out on the road by myself. I just wasn't. So anyway, I'm approaching 2 years sober, and I'm at the Keating Center. We had already moved out at that point, but I was back at the Keating Center doing a big book study. A friend of ours he led the study, and I liked it. So I was there on a Tuesday night. And after the meeting, a guy we had gone through there with, a guy named Wes, he came walking in after the book study, and he said, "Hey, man, you still got your CDL, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he handed me a phone number. He said, "Call this number." So I called the number. It was a woman who was also in the program, and she had a truck. She a very small trucking company, one truck, but she owned it, and she needed a driver. And I called her, and I hadn't driven at that point in 7 or 8 years, but she took a chance on me, and I took her truck out and drove around about half of the country for about 1.5 years with her. And it was faith. It was whatever you want to call it, man. It's, a power greater than myself looking out for me. I was in the right place at the right time. I was involved with all these drunks, and there was a need that needed to be filled, and I was there to fill it. And it was pretty cool. So I drove for her, like I said, for about 1.5 years. Wasn't the perfect situation by any means. Like I said, she had one truck. And half the time didn't really know what she was doing either, but it was okay. It got me back on the road. It got me the experience again, so that when I was done with that phase of my career, I was back into it, and I had that 1.5 years of experience, recent experience again, and without, running into anything and wrecking the truck and all that good stuff. And so it was time to go to a real trucking company. I could walk right in and do it, and I did. So yeah, it was being at the right place at the right time, doing the next right thing, do good, get good, all that good stuff.
Well, in the other thing too, I think the piece that you left out was there was somebody that you didn't care for that gave Wes the phone number, right?
Oh, God, that's right. Yeah. You know what? It was, yeah, I forgot about that too. No, it was well, I'm not going to use his name. It was a guy named Jack, who was absolutely not one of my favorite AAs. He was an asshole. Just because you get sober doesn't mean you stop being an asshole. And he was a wonderful example of that. But yeah, it was it was a guy, and yeah, God, I forgot all about that. Wow.
That was to me, that was one of the best parts in it. And I remember that Wes is the one that gave you the phone number, but then he said who he got it from. I remember you're like, he got it from Jack, blah blah. And
right.
Nobody, well, I mean, out of our group, we didn't care for this dude, and there's a lot of things that are unimportant, but But it's funny because, again, some dude that you just, hated, basically, pass along the phone number to Wes, and then, you end up with this thing that literally puts you where every place you are now is because of that asshole.
Right. Yeah, right. So thanks, asshole. I appreciate it.
Exactly. But so here's the other thing that I thought was kind of cool. And that's when, even though I used to tease you every once in a while, but you posted on Facebook every single morning and along the way, every single day for that entire time. And even after that, and you told me why, and share why you did that.
Well, because I was in this truck by myself, traveling around the country. I was going down to Texas and then going up to Minnesota and going, east to New Jersey and all over the place. Basically, clearly everywhere around. Anyway, doesn't matter. I was going all over the damn place, and I needed to keep myself accountable. I needed to let people know I was still there and still doing what I was supposed to do, even though I was, for all intents and purposes, by myself. And, at 2 years sober, I needed to do that. I needed to be accountable every day. So I did. I would post every day. Hi, I would, I'd start the day off with just, have a good day, everybody. And then, I wherever I parked for the night, I would post, put a location and say home for the night, just to let people know I was there. I was doing what I was supposed to do.
Yeah. And I thought that, and like I said, the initial thing, again, who you got it from, that was, to me, it was just funny, but that part of it, that accountability part, I thought was huge. And I used to post every day, just and you see them now on Facebook. I come across these things that I'm sharing from 11 years ago,
Right.
and they're quotes every single morning when I would get, because I'd usually go to Burger King or sit in the lunchroom at work or whatever before I started, and I'd
Right.
find a recovery quote, and I was doing that for myself, but I posted on Facebook, and it wasn't, even though they were. For me, they were recovery things. I didn't say, "Oh, here's a recovery thing," but I think inadvertently doing that on purpose. But then when you started doing it, I did it when I moved back here, and it was
Right.
based on the same thing. I was in Wisconsin all by myself and stuff like that. But no, I just thought that was cool because you were gone sometimes for not just a couple of days, it was a week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks.
Right.
Just out doing whatever you're doing and wherever you're going. So no, I think that's important though, because 2 years it's a lot of time, but it's not a lot of time really.
Right.
To have that type of freedom. So no, I just thought that was cool. So do you think that, and again, that the first job I know you said was awful. The second job, I know I probably caused you more stress than the first one. Do you think, thinking back now, and I know it was a means to the ends to get back into to the trucking end of things. Do you think it was like stressful, or was that the right things for you to do at the time?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was stressful. And you know what? I don't question that stuff anymore. I don't. If it was the right thing to do or not, it was the thing that I did. And like you said, it got me to where I'm at today, working for, well, quite frankly, now this is the third trucking company I've worked for since I started with that independent. And now I'm working for the largest fleet in the country. And, I plan on retiring from this company. I don't question whether it was the right thing to do or not. It was the thing that I did. So apparently it was right, but it's not for me to judge. I don't know. Well, I'm sure I could have done something else. I'm sure I could have been with a real company sooner. I may have been able to just step off and get a job with a regular company. I don't know. I don't care. It's what I did. So that's what happened.
Well, and I asked that question on purpose because I knew what your answer was going to be, but I wanted you to share that, and not to say I know what your answer is going to be. It's just more natural for you to say it. But I did, and the thing is, and because the reason I asked that question is because I was thinking too much when I first started, and the second job that I got, when I finally was trying to manufacture this thing back into, and I've been in sales and I can do it, but I needed to get back into something that I knew and something that I could do. So when I actually started applying within the industry that I've been in, the collection industry, I had a job within like 3 days. And literally, I sent out like 3 applications. One was a, what do you call a placement company or temp firm. I went temp to hired, and ever since, I took just a desk collector position to begin with, but then within a year changed and was in a supervisory and training position, and then basically, well, a couple of exceptions, but I've been in that business ever since again. But I tried to I tried to overthink it, and I tried to figure this is going to be stressful and whatever. Where you didn't, you just let. But I mean, you just let everything flow. But that's
Mhm.
yet another example of you and I.
Right.
I just and I guess the only thing that I can be thankful for a little bit is number one, I know what my issue is. I
Right.
can't I can't always correct it, but I have, if nothing else, I have you because everything I
Mm,
run by you. I mean, we've had sponsors and all those different things, but
right.
I've always come to you,
Mhm.
first, and then talk to a sponsor or something like that. So 9 times out of 10, you're the one that's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know," but
Yeah.
yeah, and, I mean, my job right now is it's stressful. It's stressful based on the situation. I don't know that I'm completely happy with what I'm doing or what I want to do next, but I don't know that I want to do this forever. But
Mhm.
it's a situation where, um, again, I have a job. It pays decent enough. I've got, I think, job security. I have an
Right.
opportunity now to in a couple of months, kind of expand off and do what I want to do.
Mhm.
But one way or the other. I mean, I'm at a point in my life where I think I can. You just said you want to retire from that place. I don't know that I want to do
Mhm.
that, but I'm in a
Right.
position where I'm like, okay, I think I know what I want to do. It's not necessarily this, but I'll figure it out. And
Right.
I try to let things flow a little bit more these days, but I'm far from fucking perfect at it.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It all comes down, whatever you talk about questioning my decisions and whatever. You know what, man? Still sober. So apparently I did something right.
Right. No, I agree wholeheartedly. And
Right.
and like I said, I know your goal was to get off the road and be local, which you
Mhm.
are. So I mean,
Right.
you've been able to follow that path, which is awesome. So no, I just again I knew it was a good story, and again the funniest part was where you actually got where you actually
Yeah.
got it from. But
And I blocked that out.
and that's probably the right way to put it. You probably did. That was your job blackout.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I can still compartmentalize things, put it, okay, that was a bad thing. That was horrible. I'm going to put that over there and not think about it.
Right. You can't speak well, but you can still compartmentalize.
I could do something.
But that brought up another thought because once again, you and I know when you drove before because you talked about in your story and stuff like that,
Mm,
you didn't actually drink while you were driving, but minute you
right.
parked at night, you got loaded and passed out and started all over again. You
I
know,
did.
but then it started to make me think about same thing with tonight, and we had talked a little bit about having fun and some of the things we've done, and obviously our trip down to Akron and just some of the things that just we've done in general. I mean, the concerts we talked about, all that sort of thing, but
Hmm.
I started thinking about the fact that we're coming up to Memorial Day, and then there's Fourth of July, and then there's Labor Day coming up. All the summer stuff that goes along with that. In that
Right.
that first year, because we got sober in April, and I just started thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, that's right. How that first summer was weird, and then it came
Mm,
to like football season, and I'm a huge football fan, and my team, the Packers, went to the Super Bowl and won that year. So
hmm.
I hadn't watched football ever without drinking. All these different things. Do you
Right.
remember? I mean, like going to whether it be a holiday event, and you and I went to some of the family events, which
Hmm.
people drank at them. But do you
Right.
remember like making or what plan you made if you were going to an event where you knew, even if it was a family event, where you knew there was going to be alcohol involved? Do you remember? This is just, I guess, a further thought to having fun doing it and being places, but kind of making a plan. Do you remember making specific plans about how to act or what to do?
Um, uh, Other than as we were taught, having an escape plan is really it. I mean, I knew I wouldn't I've never had a problem with other people drinking around me. I mean, somebody gets completely loaded, it's annoying. But but I understand that they can and I can't. So that's fine. I've never had a problem with that. But when it got to the point, I needed to have that escape plan. If it got to the point where I was becoming uncomfortable and was just I needed to get out. I needed to get away, and to do it tactfully and lovingly and unselfishly. But yeah, to be able to excuse myself tactfully from the situation where if I needed to. And I would have an escape plan. I always knew there were people I could call, you, of course, and a way to get out if I had to. That was it. Other than that, the rest of it is me, my problem. But I needed to make sure that I didn't ruin someone else's good time, or ruin, because I did that enough, so that wasn't in the plan anymore. So yeah, to be able to just, say, hey, it's time for me to go. And that was it. That was the only plan I had.
Well, and it made me think about it too, just again with these holidays coming up, because Marty used to basically lock us down not lock us down, but the Keating Center, he wouldn't let people go anywhere on the holiday. So
Right.
we would and we were only there basically for, 4th of July, I think by that point we were starting to look for work at that point. So we weren't really,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah, but I know, but that obviously the first Memorial Day, I remember we just did, it was like the bags tournament that we did, and we were all pissed off because we couldn't go anywhere. But
Right.
he knew better, than to put us in that situation that new and that fresh. But I remember, that the summertime wasn't that big of a deal. I think we got together, and at that point you wouldn't have been around John and Gail, I don't think, that first summer. But I think we did later on, we did the Edgewater things and stuff like that. And, we did gatherings at people's houses, but Christmas was the big one. Well, Thanksgiving, my family at that point, they're like, we're not going to drink at Thanksgiving. And I'm like, well, you don't have to do that. We're like, nope, we've all decided we're doing it, alcohol-free Thanksgiving. And I'm like, okay, because part of that made me a little, I'm like, I just felt like, I don't know, like you said, ruining somebody's time. I felt like,
Right.
I don't know, like I was being a burden. And then Thanksgiving was cool. We had a great time. It was good Thanksgiving. It was my stepdad's favorite holiday all the time. John and Gail were there. Johnny was there, I'm sure. So Kathy was there. Great time. And then talks of Christmas started coming up. Now, Christmas with, and the stories of our family and Christmas's past. And, it was a huge drink fest and a lot of fun. And nobody ever got stupid, but everyone, I actually fit in pretty well there.
Right.
around the holidays, because everyone kind of drank like I always did. But that first Christmas, I remember, I think my mom and John were talking about that. They're like, okay, we're gonna do the same thing for Christmas. And I said, please don't. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I said, they're like, we don't want you to be uncomfortable. I said, if you're concerned about me being uncomfortable, I said, if you guys decide to make it a dry Christmas, I said, that's going to make me really, really fucking uncomfortable, because that's not what we do. Thanksgiving, thank you, I appreciate it, but you guys can't do that. And I talked to my sponsor before then, and exactly what you just said. He didn't use those words, but that's what he was talking about, is an escape plan. First thing he told me, he says, can you take somebody there that's sober? I'm like, no, because you were my first thought at that point. Because you and I we were friends, but starting to get to that point, I easily would have said you and I could have hung out at Christmas there. So that wasn't going to work. And then I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to drive. I'm going to drive separately. And then that wasn't going to work because, as it turned out, Mom was in the hospital. She had pneumonia that year. So I ended up, took my stepdad, and then my grandma, and you met our grandma on my mom's side. And then I'm like, okay, that's my plan. Cause I know she would stay maybe till 9 or 10 and she'd have to go. So I'm like, here's my out.
Yep.
And that's what I did. And when I was leaving, I remember like Kathy's husband, he's like, oh, you're not leaving because, do you feel uncomfortable? No, I'm good. I got to take grandma home and whatever. It turned out to be the perfect thing. And from that point on, and to this day, 12 years later, I never go anywhere that I can't leave, ever.
Right. Yep.
And I've always done that, so it's one of the things that we were taught very early on. And And again, I was thinking about that because this is a weird time, and I thought about that too. Again, we've had 2 nice days. Again, windows down, sunroof open, and this great weather.
Mhm.
I love it, but I know what that does to people in general, but also to people like us that these feelings come back. And this is the summertime, especially around here. There's a well, in Cleveland too. I mean, you're in the same boat. There's
Right.
that 3 maybe 4 month period, and people just they pack everything into it. And there's a lot of alcohol involved.
Mhm.
So that's why I wanted to talk about that too, because if there are people listening that are new, and it's not there's nothing that we did that was magical, at
Mhm.
all. All that we did was a basic thing. Have it, and I love the way that you put that. Have an escape plan, but
Yep.
also I never thought about what you just said as far as leaving tactfully. I mean, I ended up doing that because I was around people that loved and cared about me. I mean, I was at like Jody and James's wedding, an Irish
Mhm.
fucking wedding.
Right.
two, 2 years sober. I had
Right.
just I had just turned 2 years sober, just under it. It was in April. And I mean, when I walked in there and like Kathy and Mark were there, we're at the again the happy hour part, whatever, the drinks beforehand.
Mhm.
And when I got in there, Mark's like, he came back and he had some whiskey. Kathy had wine, and he goes, I didn't see any soda. He goes, I see whiskey and wine up there. I said, are you kidding me? I mean, they had soda, but it was a place where, I mean, again, all of our family was there. I was safe. Everyone knew my deal. But
Sure.
I remember having like a plastic cup with soda in it, and I wouldn't set it down because I'm like, I don't want to pick up the wrong glass. And a
Right.
couple of times I did, and then I'm just like, I'm not going to drink it. I got to go grab a different one.
Yeah.
But I stayed for the dinner, had a nice time. I stayed for the band to start playing, and then I left. And I was probably there till, I don't know, 11:30, whatever it was. But
Mhm.
I stayed to the point when people started to, get loosened up, and I'm like, oop, got to go, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it is. It's having the right mindset, but I think it's so hugely important to have that plan. And I don't know. I mean, I know you and I were taught the same thing, but I don't know that in so many of these things that you and I have talked about, but never really sat down and said, "Hey, do you remember this?
Right.
Do you remember that?" So this is our chance to to recap all these things.
Mhm.
So, I had to share one thing real quick because I told Kathy I was going to do it. She started laughing. So, 2 things. So she was listening to, she's listened to all of our episodes, and I think I mentioned to you that she told me that there are certain things that we're saying that are kind of hitting home with her on a normie
Mhm.
level, which I thought
Mhm.
was cool. And then she
Right.
passed it along. She passed it along to one friend of hers, and then another friend of hers. I think that it used to as some sort of alcohol involvement in her life. And then so
Mhm.
she didn't know that I was sober. And then Kathy's telling her about me and you. And like, yeah, listen to it. She's like, oh my God. So she started listening to it. And I mean, these are like relatively normie people. But then
Mhm.
Kathy said something about, I don't know, she was talking about detox, but she's like, yeah, when you were in detox. And I'm like, no.
No, no, I still have that.
Yeah, that's what I said. I still have my cocks, only one of them, but I still have them. So it literally, as she said that, I started laughing. I pulled out my phone and like, that's going on the podcast. So
Mhm.
I put in my little list of notes. But yeah, so decox. Um,
Detox. Yes. I
uh,
haven't been decoxed, haven't been deballed.
I, I'm like new. I would say should we call it neutered? I have my nuts though, but
That's true. Yeah, you've had your tubes tied.
yeah, I've had my male tubes tied. That is correct. So, um, oh, I know the other thing I was thinking about, and it was just based on the podcast that I listened to. So this podcast has been having, and this is back from the episodes I'm listening to now are like probably May, June of 2020. So I mean, like really
Couple
fresh
years
and new
old.
into the pandemic, start
Mhm.
of the pandemic and all that. But also there was, and I'm not going to get into all of this stuff because I mean, I don't know enough about either way. I'm not knowledgeable of all these subjects, but she's having a lot of different people from different walks of life in different areas. And basically a lot of this, she's talking about, and showing people that alcohol and drugs don't discriminate against, race, color, creed, your position in life. You could be up, you could be down, all these different places. And I thought about that in, well, two things: that the different types of people that we've listened to and watched watched lead, everyone from, I mean, just off the top of my head, judges, attorneys. Do you remember the priest at Who Do You Know?
Barely. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I do.
And he was a younger guy too. And I think there might have been one other priest that we heard at one point, but the thing of it is with those guys is that, and I never really thought about it. Well, first of all, I mean, it's a priest, but I mean, that's one of the things. It's like, okay, in my head, I remember when this dude walks up and he's got his collar on at the meeting and stuff. I'm like, Jesus, God didn't even give that dude a break. I'm like, what the fuck? But he talked about, the fact that how much alcohol and things like that were given to him as gifts from his congregation. Everyone always invited him to dinner and all these different things. But, the separation that even our sponsor, the gentleman that sponsored both of us, didn't he start going back to church, but he separated it because I think his priest told him, he goes, you go over there. He pointed to the meeting because I think it was the same church. He goes, you go over there for that, but come over here for this, that separation part of it. But it just made me think about it, that all the different people that we know from the different walks of life, like Seth, for instance, was a police officer, I mean, we've known people that, like Pete he was a high level executive. And again, judges, lawyers, priests. I'm sure that we've known a doctor or I know we've known a lot of medical professionals because it's it's an easy way to get, drugs that way.
But professional athletes. There was a football player that was around for a while. Of course, the Ed Keating Center was named after a sports agent. Hall of Fame baseball player is very involved in the Keating Center. Yeah. And then there's the low lifes and the hookers and thieves and everybody does not discriminate, as you said.
Well, and the funny thing too is you met the sponsor that I had here when we went to that meeting, right? You met Carl or no?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, and this is the honest to God truth, my sponsor here in Wisconsin, he could be a stunt double for Snoop Dogg. Okay. And I swear to God. And that, you remember, right?
Yeah.
And no shit. I mean, he's my sponsor is fucking Snoop Dogg. Okay. But long-term sobriety from the South. And I know a little bit of a story, but he was like, I think like badass into like organize this, that. I mean, okay, but had, I think like 20, I'm trying to think. He's in his probably mid-20s as far as years of sobriety. But that being, even setting all that stuff aside, but it's a reason that I asked him to be my sponsor, because again, we're supposed to ask people that have something that we want, and he does, and he did, and that was the reason. But he used to say all the time, that again, talking about this whole not discriminating, his saying was, the same dog that bit me bit you. And I'm like, damn, because it's true, and the funniest part too is like when I first got into the Keating Center, in my elitist attitude, and even though I wasn't, but I had this mindset that, these people and you people, and now I hate that phrase, you people. I hate it. I don't care who's talking about who or what. Nope. Because it's just it's derogatory, and I don't care who they're talking about. Oh, you people. What?
Right.
But that's how I felt, before I realized that all these guys that I thought that I had nothing in common with, and that were, I don't know, potentially out to hurt me, were not only the same, no one ran the same path, but the end result. So do you remember the meeting about the guy talked about driving his car into a house?
I don't know.
so so we were at it was a Keating Center meeting again, and some dude was up there, and he's leading, and again, a room full of alcoholics, but I think it was a men's meeting, might have been a
Mhm.
men's meeting, and I don't remember how much time we had. It was almost irrelevant, but this guy had a good lead, and he's got everyone engaged, and he's talking, and he's like, yeah, and this and that, and I went ahead, and he's drunk and missed a turn, and he goes, I drove my car into somebody's living room, and then he
Mm.
starts talking, and then he stops, and he goes, did everyone hear what I said? And everyone stops, and he goes, I drove my car into somebody's living room, and still everyone's just like, well, kind of like the
Yeah.
shrugging of the shoulders. Well, yeah. And
Mhm.
he said that's the coolest part of meetings. He said that he goes, there's no place else in the world that you can walk in
Right.
and just say, by the way, I was drunk and I I drove my car into somebody's living room. And have people just
Mhm.
say, of course you
Yeah,
did. Why
sounds
would
about right.
yeah. Why wouldn't you do that, right?
Right.
but that was a fun part too. And I don't know if I ever, or if you remember me telling me this. I remember it. I think it was Uncle John that asked me that. I was, again, very very new, newly
Mhm.
sober. We were over at their house, and he was asking me, he's like, is it, asking me about the groups and all those different things and the meetings, and genuinely wanted to know. And
Mhm.
I remember him asking me, he goes, is it strange, having these conversations, kind of like, bearing your soul to these strangers? And that
Right.
was the first time that somebody had asked me that, and I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? I said, it's not.
Right.
He's like, really? And I said, no, because I said, I'm not telling them anything that they either haven't done, heard, or would do.
Mhm.
It said, I'm basically, I'm hearing my story. They're telling me theirs. And again, I don't even think I was 30 days sober at the time. And I
Mm.
told him, I said, no offense. I said, it's actually I'm more uncomfortable talking to you guys than I am to them.
Right.
And he's like, and I think, well, how Uncle John was. I mean,
Mhm.
he probably apologized. I'm like, no, I don't mean it bad. It just
Right.
is. So I didn't realize that, I know I didn't say then, like, I feel uncomfortable talking about, or to you guys now, because I didn't realize it was going to evolve, but of course it
Mhm.
did. And I don't mind sharing, thoughts and things like that with family, but the deepest things, stay within, as they say, stay within the rooms, right?
Right.
So anything else from meetings like that you remember? I mean, that was one of the wildest things that I remember. But anything else that somebody said that I don't know, not that you were shocked about, but it was just kind of like a wild story.
Nah, nothing comes to mind. Again, they don't seem all that wild because it's, looking back on my quote unquote career, yeah, I did some pretty stupid, amazing, rotten things too. We all do. Like you said, the paths are different, but the results are the same, and really the intentions are the same, and the results are the same. It's all the same. Like I tell the guys in group all the time, look, man, I'm just a garden variety drunk who did a whole bunch of dope.
That's it. I've heard you say the garden variety drunk all the time, but I don't know if I've
Mhm.
ever heard you follow it up with
Oh yeah.
with that.
Well, I got to relate to those junkies there.
Right.
Because again, I'm one too. There's no different. Like the big book says, man, alcohol is just a symptom, which means heroin's just a symptom, and crack is just a symptom, and whatever the hell we're putting in ourselves are just a symptom of our selfishness and self-centeredness.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And that was the one thing I remember too when we first got in there. And it's kind of like I guess it was the intake meeting with Phyllis, and she had
Mhm.
asked, about. She goes, "Do you have any drug use?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "None." I'm like, "No." And she's like,
Yeah, you're the weirdo when it comes to that.
"Oh, I know. I mean, out of all of our friends, I mean, all you guys, have
Right.
done, if not a lot of things, at least a few things here and there. And yeah, I am.
Mhm.
But I used to mow the grass in the lines and think about it was. Remember that with doing leaves
Yeah.
at mom's. I
Yep.
used to mulch up the leaves and put them into like lines like it was cocaine. It was just funny, but
Mhm.
I barely seen a line, let alone done one. But yeah,
Mhm.
but she said right after that, she's like, "Oh, you're in for a treat." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "You're going to learn more about drugs than you probably ever wanted to know." And you know what? I have, but it helped me
Yeah.
too. I could actually talk with people, feel comfortable with other, sober people, and not, and
Mhm.
not discriminate, because honestly, I didn't I didn't really know anyone. I knew people who smoked weed. I knew some people who, snorted some coke over the years. I knew people, who did those things, but that was
Mhm.
it. I didn't know anyone else who like hit it hard. Like some of our friends are, and you included,
Yeah.
fucking hardcore, man.
Yep.
you know, but but the thing of it is, I don't care. It doesn't bother me.
Right. It doesn't
So,
matter.
yeah, exactly. So a couple of other things that two more things that popped into my head, and it reminded me of, I was thinking again about the three-quarter house. Do you remember, we had a conversation with Bob, the one that you blew his anonymity. God, I couldn't say that, anonymity,
Yes.
a couple weeks ago. And
Uh-huh.
there was somebody had fruit, and he had said something along the lines, it's like, don't eat that if it's spoiled. You'll have to change your sobriety date. And I remember stopping, and I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, because when fruit, whatever it was, turns into certain alcohol, and he's like, you'd have to, if you eat it, you'd have to change your sobriety date. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah. So he's going through all this stuff. I'm like, okay, you wait. And at this point, again, I don't even think we were 2 years sober. And I'm having this conversation. He's got a couple years on us, and he starts telling me about this, and I'm like, that's not true. I said, so you get a piece of bad fruit and it has got alcohol in it or broke. I'm like, no. He's like,
No.
well, that's what my sponsor said. I'm like, man, you need to do sponsor.
Mhm.
And then so we got into this whole conversation. I'm like, okay, so let's take this one step further. What if you accidentally take a drink? You didn't do it on purpose.
Mhm.
Somebody put booze in your drink or whatever. Yep, you got to change your sobriety date. I'm like, the fuck you do.
No.
I mean, if somebody slipped you a roofie, a drug, a booze, or anything like that, and I'm like, that's not your fault. And I said, here's what my sponsor taught me. Then I'm getting all fucking high and mighty on him, because it made me think about the sobriety date. For figuring my sobriety date, he said, when is the last day that you put a substance into your body yourself?
Right.
And I'm like, okay, that was April 17th. And he said, April 18th is your sobriety date. I'm like, I was in detox. I was messed up for days. And he's like, doesn't matter. He goes, you didn't do that. They were trying to help you. Yes, you had drugs, yes, you had things in your body, but you didn't do it. I'm like, okay, that's what he taught me, Yeah. And then, so we went through this whole thing, and it got a little raw. And I'm not going to say exactly what I said, because I got pretty literal with him. But I thought about that. I'm like, it's just the thing of it is, it's just, God forbid. I don't know that we know of anyone. I don't, that was slipped drugs or alcohol or anything like that, to my knowledge. But I remember, it's even somebody asking me that question, not really jokingly, but just like, hey, what if? And I'm, well, if it was an accident, it is what it is. It's like, well, what if somebody did that to you? Like, what if somebody did that to you? And I said, well, if I found out who it was, I'd beat the fuck out of them. And I said, well, maybe not, but probably. But I'm like, I tell you one thing. I said, if it was somebody I cared about, they wouldn't be in my life anymore. I'll tell you that much. If they did it on purpose. But yeah. So that
I'll guarantee, man. If they're a real drug addict, they're not sharing their drugs. They're not giving the shit away. Here, man, I'm gonna use some of my dope to fuck you up. I don't think so. I'm gonna use some of my dope to fuck me up.
You know what? That's you just solved the problem. Thank you. That just, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it.
No, I'm not. No, but it was funny when I thought about that conversation with Bob. But yeah, that's actually that's a pretty damn good point. Yeah. Why would anyone? So did when you came to your sobriety date, were you taught the same thing as far as like the last day that you used or drank, or how did you figure it out?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, my sobriety date was my first day in detox as well. Yeah, and, and like you said, I was loaded up, man. They were giving me Valium and stuff, so I wouldn't fucking seize. But yeah, but yeah, that was medicine, man. That does, Christ. Lots of our friends have had surgeries and stuff, and they've been given painkillers, and that's medical, that's doctor, and whether you feel the effect of it. Mark Maron calls it a freebie. He did that. He was talking about he had some procedure done, or I think he had some dental work done, and so they doped him up to do it, and he called it a freebie. And I went, "Yep, that's exactly what it is."
So, and the fact that you bring that up and made me think about it too. I've had a couple of dental things done over the years, and it almost shocked me how easy it would have been for me to get not only in that valley and Vicodin or Oxy, both of those. And even though when I filled out the paperwork, I'm filling out everything on there and then even putting on the side, I'm an alcoholic. I wanted to put I'm a raging alcoholic.
Right.
But this one place I went into, and it was just I went in, filled out the paperwork. I even gave it to the person. I'm like, just make sure that the doctor knows this part. I don't want any. I'll take the Novocaine, whatever you got to do, but I'm like, nope.
Right.
Pain meds, I don't need them. So I filled it out. Told her. Doctor still asked me. I'm like, no. Nurse that comes in, one nurse asked me, no. Another nurse, actually, at the end, she's like, the doctor will be coming in with your prescription. Nope, don't need it. He walks in with a prescription already filled out. Gave it to me, and I'm like, arms up. I got my arms up right now, like Jim Benny used to do. Nope, I don't want it. Don't want it no more. But I mean, it happened, and I was just like, damn. So it makes sense to me, whether in those circumstances, and I already know what I would do if I had to have a surgery like that. Whether it was my son, my daughter, I would give pills to my ex-wife and just say, hey, I'm going to stop over once a day and grab whatever I need, but don't give me anything else. Lock it up. You've got a gun safe. Put it in there.
Again, keeping yourself accountable.
Yeah, because I wouldn't want to have it around here. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Again, I just don't know. So, but
and I mean, and for me, it hasn't happened yet. I haven't run into that situation yet. But if I had to, if I, they slice me open, and I need that sort of medicine. I'm going to go into it, the mindset, hopefully, with, I need this to physically heal. I'm not doing it to get loaded. I'm not doing it for the effect. I will feel the effect, but I'm not going to get in my head and have fun with it, because that's not what my life is about today, and hopefully that would be the way it would happen. And I've seen people in the rooms, friends of mine, our friend Ben had open heart surgery, and he was freaked out because, he was like, they're going to cut my fucking chest open. I'm going to have to take something, or you're going to lose your mind. You're going to be in so much pain that you're not going to be able to heal properly. But again, he was accountable. He talked it with a sponsor. He made sure that he had people around him to help him take this medicine properly. Because like anything else, we can't do it on our own, including taking drugs when we have to.
When we're actually required to take them. And you know what? It's funny that you brought up Ben, because he was the first one I thought about when you were just talking about surgeries. He was the first one. And I remember that 100%. He's Ben's a really good friend of ours. And I mean, this was a while ago too. I mean, was I still in Cleveland? I might not have been, but
I think you might have been. Yeah. I mean, we were maybe 2-3 years sober, somewhere around there.
Yeah. I do remember it. I remember him being freaked out. Phyllis went in for surgery, and I know a couple other people that I know for a fact have done it. So, but yeah, it was just again, one of these thoughts that come into my head that sometimes it's fun to just get out and talk about. And we ended up talking that subject for probably 10 minutes. So
we did.
Apparently, we had some things to say about it.
We did.
So, but I've got all my suggestions are run through, but anything else, and I always obviously ask you, I think I know the answer already, but anything else on your mind?
Not a goddamn thing.
That's what
we've hit the hour and 4-minute mark here. So I think we've filled our time for this week. You fuckers are going to have to come back next week to hear some more.
Yeah, clearly we could talk more, but we're not fucking going to.
That's right.
All right.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Exactly. Go back and listen to fucking listen to the other episodes. Come on, man.
Right.
All right, brother. It is your time and your turn.
All right, man. Thanks for listening to another episode of Sober Not Mature. Be good this week. Be kind to the people around you, and never forget, fuck off.
All right, brother. I love you.
I love you too, man. We'll see y'all next week.
All right, bye.
Bye.
As always, thank you for listening to another episode of Sober Not Mature. To access all of our content and interact with us, please visit our website, SoberNotMature.com. Thank you again for listening, and we will talk to you soon.